So this is my suitcase case I'm building. Almost there. Got the power in, which is frequency central root masters. These run off an AC wall wart. Remember, it's an AC wall wart, not AC DC. The plan is to put a 3 amp wall wart into this, 12 volt 3 amp. Got a connector plug just there. And Rick Holt from Frequency Central suggests that you put larger heat sinks on the voltage regulators, so I have. So these have all got quite large heat sinks on the voltage regulators, and then heat paste. So this is kind of the first bit. They're all in and wired and tested, so they work, but I haven't loaded any modules in and don't know whether there's going to be enough power. Modular Grid says there is enough power, but this is the first time I've ever wired bus boards in parallel circuit, so I'm a little bit kind of it's all a bit of an experiment, but we'll find the rails. And all I've done is I've mounted the rails on some plywood. Looks a bit dodgy from the side, but you won't see that bit. And then I've just put some veneer over the top. Unfortunately, it did crack. I say veneer, I actually cut this from some hardwood and then tried gluing it down. It was a bit of an experiment, and because the rails sit slightly proud, I had to rebate the back side of this using a router, and the material's so thin it has split a little bit in a couple of places, so I might do those again, but it's quite nice to have the hardwood trim. So I'll pop these in and you can have another look. So that's it with the rails in. They literally just drop in, and then I'm going to use some bolts to secure them. I've drilled some holes, and then we're going to bolt those to the case, to the suitcase, and that gets everything nice and snug. So I'll do that. So with the rails in from the outside, you just got those two big kind of button head bolts. That's because the rails are obviously fixed on the plywood on the inside of the suitcase. It's just a nice finishing touch. They're bolted in, and I've made sure that these bolts sit underneath the rails, and the reason for that is to hopefully prevent any contact from a module hitting the metal of the rail. This is just temporary. This needs fixing in properly, just zip tied and a P-clip, but I've got some P-clips for the wiring, so I'm going to get those out of the way and fixed in properly eventually. It's not quite square, which is really annoying. I thought it was, but there's a bit of a gap here and less of a gap here. I will be able to sort that out. I'll just widen these holes and that will allow it to slip back. I think it's the case that's not square, to be honest, because everything here is all 90 degrees. But we'll see when we start putting modules in. That'll probably tell me whether I've cocked it up or whether I've got it right. Mistakes have been made. So normally these power bus boards, in all my other cases, I've had the negative rail, which is the one with the line on. These are not box headers because I built this years ago. I've had this for 7 years, this power bus, so it's pretty ancient. Normally I'd have them the other way around. The reason for mounting them this way was to try and get the heat sinks, which are quite tall, underneath the rails, so they don't impact on the modules. I still think I may have to be careful about which modules go where, because obviously a deeper module will hit the capacitors. If I did it again, I'd have shifted all this over to the side. That would have been clever, but I'm not clever, so I didn't. So yeah, the negative rail on all of them is at the top, whereas normally we put the red line or the red, the negative rail at the bottom. And then with the box headers, I built these more recently, they should be the other way around, which is a bit of a, bit dodgy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug all of these, particularly without the box headers, because you can make a mistake real easy with these. I'm going to plug all of the cables in first and then check them. So I'm going to fill this row up first just because of that, because I don't want to accidentally plug a module in the wrong way round. It tends to go bang. These are less of an issue because of the box headers. You can't really get it wrong. Just have to remember that it's facing left, not right. But yeah, I guess that's some of the constraints about design. And as I say, the reason I've done that is because I wanted these underneath the rail, not underneath the gap, if that makes sense. So we'll start putting some modules in and get to testing. So top tip for those that are new, when you're working out where to put stuff, just don't bolt anything in and just try stuff out and see where you want to put it. Just to tell you why I'm doing this, I've had these two cases for a really, really long time. I've had them for 7 years. So there's this one which I made myself, which is pretty gash, and then that one which I think I bought on like Etsy or eBay. That was really good value, to be fair. Cracking little box, no problem, but having two of these was a pain, because if I wanted to use them, it meant that I when you kind of put in the patch cable in, if you got one sat on top of the other, it would move. So I really wanted all my modules in one case. This isn't the final solution for that. This is a portable case, the idea that I can take it to work. So once it's racked, I can use this as a performance case. I can change the modules around as I want to, and then I can obviously take it with me, and it will be fairly safe. I could probably make some clever patch storage solution for the lid, because obviously the lid's got loads of space in it. Not sure what I'll do with that yet. Probably will do something in the future, but I'm not in a rush to do that. I can just take my patch cables and the power supply in a bag. It's fine. But really I wanted to protect the modules. So I'm going to carry on kind of working out where I'm going to put stuff, because what I hadn't remembered is sometimes a module may need a cable like that, which is a 16-way cable, and then other times modules need that, which is a 10-way cable. So I can't actually plug them all in, because I need to figure out which module's going where in order to make sure I give the right cable to the right module. It's just a bit of a weird thing with Modular, but there you go. So this is how I think I'm going to organise it. I might change my mind, but yeah, not sure yet. There's a few modules in here I might take out as well, because I don't really use them and they're just kind of filling space. And then there's some modules over here, like the Turing machine Mark 1. Bless it, look at that. Which I probably do want in the case. So I'm not quite sure yet. So what I've done, and I know this isn't conventional, but up at the top, we've got kind of clock and utility stuff, top left. So this is a clock source. Then I've got a logic gate, because very often you want to divide things or combine things from the clock or from an LFO. So there's an LFO here. The lovely dual LFO from MFB, no longer made, which is such a shame because it's fantastic. Ornament and crimes. So the ornament and crimes capable of a load of different stuff, from quantizing to Euclidean clock signals, stuff like that. This is a filter and it shouldn't be here, and I'm going to move it. I've got my filters down at the bottom right, and I'll show you why in a minute. The fantastic Buffoon Rampage in the centre of the console for a couple of reasons. One, I use it a lot, and also it's a relatively shallow module, so it doesn't hit on the higher part of the power supply. So there's been some thought about which modules go where. Some of the modules are very, very deep, and I'll show you those in a minute. This is an Attenumaltz built from Pusherman Productions a while ago now. I haven't seen this in stock anymore. It's a shame, because it's really, really useful. Basically, you've got two inputs there, audio rate inputs, because it's buffered, I think. And then you've got the outputs here, and you can attenuate each of the outputs on each of those strips. And then down the bottom, it's kind of like a passive mixer. So you can put 3 signals in and get 1 signal out, which is really, really useful. It just means you can combine things like low frequency oscillators and get complex shapes, things like that. Then we've got 2 of the Expert Sleepers distings. The disting Mark 3 is this one, which is really difficult to work out what menu you're in, so it's not my favourite module. Tend to stick it in a mode like delay or reverb and just leave it there. This is the Disting Mark 4, which is a lot better, because it's got a little LCD screen that gives you some information. But they kind of all work the same way. So once you learn kind of what the inputs are and what the outputs are, it's very similar. This is a Frequency Central Mults, just a passive multiplier. So useful. So you put a signal in there and you get a copy out here, but it is passive, so it's not great for audio signals, because with the audio signals it means that you get degrading of the signal every time you go into another one. So in theory you start to lose tuning. So if you put an oscillator in here and say tune it to a middle C, by the time it gets to here after copying it 3 times, it's no longer a middle C, it's drifted out of tune. So for that, instead of that, you want a buffered multiplier. So a buffered multiplier gives you that little boost in voltage just to keep it in tune. Then we've got a Semvelope filter, a Semvelope ADSR from Frequency Central. Super snappy, so attack, decay, sustain, release. Then we've got the System X envelopes, which are the first, I think this one was the first module I ever built, possibly. So I've had these for like 7 years. They're based on the Roland System 100 possibly, or System X envelopes, and again designed by Frequency Central. Really nice little envelopes. The Semvelope is definitely snappier. it can react quicker, but these are great too. Then we've got a Tacarb mix. So it's just a 3-input mixer with volume control and then stereo out. That's really useful, but it will eventually get replaced, and I'll show you that on the bottom row. So row 2 is kind of noise sources, sound sources. Got my trusty braids. This is a clone. It's not a genuine Mutable Instruments one, sadly, because they go for stupid money, and I don't have stupid money. I didn't build this one. I bought it secondhand, but I love the braids. It's an old module now. Like, it's been out for years and years, but it's still amazing. Loads of different sources of sound. Everything from a sine wave right through to a bell and everything in between. And it's got lots of modulation. So you can put inputs in here. Sorry, frequency modulation. You can modulate the timbre and the colour. And these double up for other functions when you dive into the menu. The menu system's super simple. I don't like menu diving generally, but I'll tolerate it in braids. I'll tolerate it in ornament and crime because they're just such capable modules. This is a Wave Rider digital oscillator from Frequency Central. No longer made, this one. I believe the module that replaces it is called the Clang Stat, so it adds some functionality and stuff. I really love this module. It's been in there again for about 6-7 years. Then we've got an analog oscillator which may come out, and I might put something else in, just because I find the analog oscillator is quite difficult to live with because they drift out of tune, and I have some interference with analog from digital. So sometimes you get a little bit of pulsing from, say, a sample and hold, or from a clock source as the LED lights up and the voltage goes through. I have had problems with them pulsing. It's probably my build. So I built this, was one of the first modules I built. Built this 7 years ago, I think, 6 or 7 years ago. Still works perfectly. If I take it out of the case and put it on a different power supply, I get no pulsing and it's rock steady. But just for me, just because of the annoyance of it drifting out of tune and stuff, I may take that out. And then this, the RYK Modular Algo, which is a complex oscillator. So you've got 4 oscillators which work on a sine wave, but then you can warp them and change them, and it do FM frequency modulation. I love this. I've only recently got this. I built it. Pretty easy kit from RYK. Really, all the SMDs already kind of soldered for you. All you have to do is build the jacks and switches and plugs on, and then kind of attach the 2 boards together. So actually quite a simple, quite easy build, to be honest. There's a few bits that are a little bit tricky to kind of get your head around, but once you've done that, it's fantastic. And I love this module. It's blowing my mind. It's the first complex oscillator I've ever really owned, because I'm a cheapskate and tight. This one is again the same as the other Frequency Central analog oscillator. Do love them though, because you get your sawtooth, your square wave, and your sine wave out, and you can take all 3 of these out at the same time. So you do get some interesting sounds by mixing them together. Then we've got a little Frequency Central Moo, which is just a passive multiplier, really good for filling space, but also really, really useful just to distribute signals around. This then is new, just recently built this, did a video on this. It's the Cosmic Background, and when I get all this set up, I will probably try and do something musical with it. The video I posted was just a demo. So this is kind of like the drum section, and then I've got a Frequency Central seismograph, which is the snare drum, and a Frequency Central seismograph, which is the bass drum. Have a problem with the bass drum. For some reason, I can't get it to change the type of drum. I think it's my soldering, or it's one of the headers on the back. Because when I push like that, if I push down, then it makes contact and works. So I think I may have to replace the headers that join the back and the front together. It's a bit annoying, but there you go. Be my soldering. My soldering is not always up to par. Then we've got a 2 HP delay, just because it fits here. And then we've got 2 kind of sets of voltage control amplifiers. The Ladic, and this is the logarithmic VCA. Really nice VCA this, and it keeps up with very, very snappy envelopes. So this one works sometimes when this one doesn't. So it's worth having it in the case. And Ladic, super, super cost-effective modules, to be fair. And then a Mark 1 Zlob Vin Kursel, and I can't say Vin Kursel. This is old. Again, I built this. It's quite a packed build. You have to put the You can see, but you have to put the resistors the right, like on their ends, and then bend the top over. Was quite a tough build, to be fair. They obviously have updated it since then. I think the updated version reacts much quicker to envelopes and stuff. Would probably be better, but I love this because we've got a bunch. We've got 5 inputs, and you can mix them together, and they sum out at the bottom, or you can take individual outs from each of them. So it's fantastic. I use that every time I patch. Literally every time I patch. So there's no way it's coming out the case. As much as I'd like an updated one, I can't afford it. So that's that. And then to the bottom row, I've kind of got some input stuff here, just because I don't want it up there, because then you end up with a cable kind of dragging down and in your way. So these are bottom left, just because if I want to put an input in, that's probably where I want to put it. These modules will probably come out. This one is the A119 external in, so it allows you to put like a guitar pedal or a guitar or something else into the modular and brings it to the modular rate. It's okay. I use it at work because I've got a lad who plays guitar, so we can plug the guitar in and then send it around the modular, which is quite nice. So it'll probably stay in this case, but in my permanent case it'll probably come out. This is a Blue Lantern version of Yarns with the possibly less pretty face plate of any module ever, but it does allow you to put MIDI in and get kind of 4 gate and pitch kind of MIDI out. Sorry, not MIDI out, analog voltage control out. But it also has things like an oscillator on it, so it does double up. Well, I think when I bought it and made it, I was quite excited about the prospect of having a clock source, an oscillator, MIDI control. But in reality, the menu's horrible, so I tend not to use it. It may come out. This is a little RYO sequencer, so just an 8-step sequencer, very analog. Doesn't have a lot of control over it, but it's kind of fun for modulating filters and things. This is a frequency central wear, which is basically a switch. In a perfect world, this should be in the middle, because then it routing wise, it would allow you to put cables from the top row, the side row, and the bottom row into it, and they wouldn't be in your face. So I might move that. I haven't decided. So it just basically allows you to put 4 signals there and get 1 output when you switch it across, or you can put 1 output in and then switch it across to 4 separate outputs. So it's performance related. It allows you to kind of pre-patch. Never really used it because I never had the space, but I'm kind of keen to try it out. This is a buffered multiplier. Probably needs to be somewhere else, but it's just there because space. I may move that. I haven't quite figured that out yet. But a buffered multiplier gives you that little signal boost. That means if I put an oscillator with a C2 tone in there, I still get a C2 tone from all the other jacks because it's got that little signal boost just to keep it up. Then we've got kind of a filter and effects section. So these are towards the kind of output side, and the reason for that is they tend to be late in the signal chain. So this is a voltage control filter from Frequency Central, the Raging Bull 3.0. I love this. You've got 3 audio inputs with volume or attenuation, which is fantastic because it allows you to kind of mix on the fly. You've got your cutoff and your resonance. It's got a voltage controlled amplifier in it. So if you send a signal to here, you can attenuate it, and then there's an internal voltage controlled amplifier, which is fantastic, just saves space. Got the output, and then here you can mix your CV inputs in the same way. So you could potentially take 3 different signals. So you could take an LFO on a saw wave, for instance, with a square wave, with a sine wave, and you could actually mix them together in that module, which is brilliant. Then we've got probably one of my favorite modules of all time. I waited 7 years to get this and build it. I saw videos years ago about people or watching people use it, like Mylar Melodies. This is a clone and improvement on the Mutable Instruments Clouds, which if you've not tried it, you must. In simple terms, it can act like a reverb, but more than that, it can split up a signal, and then the particles of sound are spread around an audio landscape, and use these sliders to control it. You've got lots and lots of modulation sources on the jack plug Monsoon, which is what this is called. And this is the addition. This is the bit that improved it over Mutable Instruments' original fantastic design, is it gives you a lot more control voltage control over each of these kind of functions. Then we've got a high pass. We haven't. We've got a sample and hold. I love the sample and hold. It should be over there, actually. I'll probably move it. Great sample and hold from Frequency Central. Don't know what they've replaced this with. It's no longer available, but there is something new. Possibly Hightower. Can't quite remember what they call it. But there is a new version of this. But again, I built this 7 years ago. It's given great service. I love it. Then we've got the State 700 filter. And again, this has been replaced. I can't remember the name of the new module. But there is a new version of this. This gives you high pass by band pass and low pass filter. Brilliant. And then this one's under construction, so I've just put the plate in there just to, just the faceplate, just to kind of think about where it goes. This is the Frequency Central strips, which I'm currently building. And in my typical ADHD dyscalculic kind of way, I've under-ordered potentiometers. So I can't finish it because I'm waiting for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What are they? B100K potentiometers, tall trim pots. Everything else is kind of done. So this is the control panel. And then there is somewhere in my chaos the main PCB. So these kind of piggyback on each other. So it's kind of a work in progress, almost finished, but not quite. When that is finished, it's got some cool functions for the money. I couldn't understand why 4-channel, 8-channel, 16-channel mixers are so expensive. But now I've built one, or building one, I kind of get it. There's an awful lot of hardware on it, and it's the expensive hardware. So the hardware that tends to be expensive when you build modules is the potentiometers and sliders and chips. So if you look at that, circuit board, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 chips on there. 3 of those are LM1700s. So that one, and that one will be LM1700s. They're about £6 each, give or take. So they're quite expensive. So that alone starts to mount up on cost. Then, of course, you've got all of that, and potentiometers are whatever potentiometers are. They cost a bit of money. And then the sliders are a little bit special. They're the Song Hyung sliders. Feel amazing. So they're a bit more expensive than other solutions. And time. So that's actually taken me quite a long time to build that. I am slow at building because I try not to make mistakes. I fail at that. I still make mistakes. But obviously the time that you spend fixing a mistake is like 10 times the time it would have taken you to do it right in the first place. So I do tend to go slow with a build. Whereas I see other people. I've seen Rick Holt build. He's on his channel on Frequency Central on YouTube. And the guy's just races through it. He uses a much higher soldering temperature than me. But I just kind of take my time because I'm rubbish. There you go. So this may change by the time I actually load it up properly. And then we'll have a go at hearing it. There are 14 modules here that need power. There's 11 modules here that need power. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 modules here that need power. So I need to take 10, 11, 12, 3 cables to the top from the bottom row, 1 cable for the top from the middle row, and then my power should be right. So all done. There were some problems. We definitely didn't have enough power. So I went up from a 2000 milliamp wall wart to a 3000 milliamp wall wart, and that's cured it. Although at startup, it's a little bit low on power, I think, because a couple of the digital modules need to have the startup cycle redone just to make them kick in. But here we go. It's just a quick patch just to show everything working. And yeah, got a suitcase. Woohoo!